This is such a big thing, Mike.
Thank you.
Come on, Jip.
Good morning, Colin.
Morning.
Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Hello and welcome to Qatar's first sports podcast, In the Game. I'm your host, Steve Mackey, and we can't wait to introduce you to everything that is sports here in Qatar and afar. We're going to be bringing you personalities, company owners, institutions, individuals that are making a real difference. So, with us, enjoy the journey.
Hello and welcome to In the Game, Qatar's first sports podcast. We have a special guest, it's going to be a little bit different to the types of guests that we've normally had, but this is very good, going to be very good, very exciting. Yogesh, please.
Hello.
It's lovely to have you on. I can't wait to get started. Please, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself and tell us all about yourself?
Certainly, Steve. First of all, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Our pleasure.
This is wonderful to be able to come and speak to you and be in conversation with some of the things that might be of interest to our audience here today.
Yeah.
So essentially, me and my team, we run an organization called Game Changers, and we use the principles of behavioral sciences. Behavioral sciences being about 6 subjects primarily, and then a bunch of peripheral subjects. The primary subjects are psychology, philosophy, economics, marketing, sociology and anthropology, and then there's evolutionary biology and complexity economics. It's endless, right? I mean, naming, there are about as many subjects as there are people. But essentially, to be able to harness the power of these subjects, of these principles, to gain insight into human behavior, human motivations, human incentives. What is it that makes us do what we do? Over and beyond the answers that our conscious helps us come up with, and then you try to be intelligent and sort of. So what is can we excavate the subconscious? Can we look at the autopilot mode of our brain? So just to be able to have a more deeper, meaningful conversation, and that's really something that we try and do around. Yeah,
I'm going to go back to your name.
Yeah.
I just love it, and I know that everybody else is going to love it too. Game Changers. Game changer.
Yeah. When we started out, it was not really a turn of phrase that was used a lot. So this is 2010-11.
Okay.
This was before the media hijack happened, and every television channel around the world started having one show called Game Changers. And so at that time, we did not need to do any SEO for our organization. And then eventually we thought, we're slipping, below and below and below just naturally. And then we said, okay, we need to get into the SEO game. But yeah, thank you. It's a name that resonated with us very strongly when we started.
Dear me, for everything I've done in my life, game changer. Be a game changer. Come on, change the game.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you. I'm very happy that it's resonating.
Yeah. So and we're all about sports.
Yes.
Everything here. Our guests are. We talk to so many different. We talk to everybody, whether it's in business, whether it's athletes, whether it's anybody that's involved with sports.
Certainly.
And this is something that you're involved with. You're kind of helping sports people, helping individuals get better at what they do.
Absolutely. It's our sort of, you can accuse us and you'd be right of accusing us of tunnel vision. We have like one end game. What is it that we can do with all of this content that's lying around us, all of these principles, all these frameworks, to be able to help us expand self-awareness, help us expand consciousness, and thereby impacting the results and the behavior and whatever else it is that we do. Yes.
So let's get to so you've got an individual in front of you. They're coming to you for the very first time.
Yeah.
What's the first steps that you start taking? What are the things that you discuss? How do you do your thing?
Sure, absolutely. So I'll just try and root it as much in reality about sports, and also about to a point where people who are listening into this podcast, no matter what they're doing, are able to relate and can see how it might positively impact their lives. So let's say, for instance, if you and I are having a conversation, and if you're looking at being able to improve performance, the standard template of improving performance, for instance, is that you look at the highest level, you look at what are the results that you have, or what is your performance.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, so these results are being determined by the actions that I'm doing, or my inaction, right?
Okay.
So which is sort of the second layer. And then very quickly we come to say that, these actions are now determined by my thinking, which is, so, you think and you act and you achieve, or the lack of achievement. That's sort of the constant template. We've heard this many hundred times in different contexts, and
Yeah.
we say that this kind of sort of results. What we've come to do with behavioral science is deepen this conversation and say, for instance, right? You hear this often: if you change your thinking, you can change yourself, you can change the results, you can change the world. Have you heard this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how easy or difficult, if I may ask you, Steve, is to change your thinking?
It's kind of we all like to think that we can change our thinking, but
Right.
we seem to fall back into the same routine.
Right.
And I suppose that's a lot of people have the same problem, right?
Yes, absolutely. And here I also want to be able to show empathy and say that it is not for lack of wanting. It is
Yeah.
not for lack of will.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of shame going around the world. Where we say that if there's a will, there's a way. Well, it is more complex than that. Is what you come to understand. Right? You may have all the will in the world, and yet to be able to build a habit is a beast of of a different order of magnitude. So anyway, to go back to the conversation that we're having, so what we try and do is that we say that the way we think is intimately, very intricately related to how you are feeling.
Yeah.
You cannot fix your thinking without fixing what you're feeling. And there is a lot of evidence around the fact that for most people, if you ask them a question, and you might have noticed this a lot of times, if you ask them what you are feeling, they give the answer as to what they're thinking. Right? And not to be a sexist or anything, men seem to have this problem a lot more than women, because women are in touch with their feelings and their emotions, but men, if you ask them what they're feeling, they end up telling you what they're thinking. Right? So we go deeper and we say, okay, what is it that you're trying to feel? What is it that you're feeling that is determining your thinking, and then that is determining your actions, and those actions are determining your results. And what we found in our work and in our experience and our understanding is that this feeling in turn is determined by what is the raw emotion that is present in your body. Right? So like emotion is informed. That's a difference between emotion and feeling. Would you like to maybe chime in on that? What do you think is the difference between emotion and feeling, Steve?
Emotion is something that is shown, and feelings is something that you kind of, I'm not really too sure. I would have thought that they were both the same. Emotion.
I mean, at a meta level, one can make a case that they're also the same. And yet there are sort of two, three differences which may be able to help us understand the nuances around this. So the first thing is that emotion precedes feeling. Emotion is something that happens in the theater of the body, and feeling is when you become aware of that certain emotion, and therefore the theater of the mind.
Yeah.
Right? And therefore, to invoke a great English movie which had Antonio Banderas and Angelina Jolie, which is called Original Sin. The point of original sin we've located is one level below emotion, which is what we call as your physiology in that moment. Okay. So by physiology, I mean, what is the biochemical process that is happening in your body? What are the electromagnetic signals that are being sent through your brain? What is the data stream? Like everything that you're doing, every single action. If you do an aerobic jump, if you do a deadlift, if you run a marathon, it is changing the biochemical composition of your body. If you breathe in a certain way, if you practice yogic breathing, it is changing the biochemical composition of your body. And what we are now able to do is make a direct, linear, straightforward relationship between the physiology of your body at any given point of time and the results that you're able to achieve. Yeah? And changing your physiology, the great news is to a very large extent within your control. And that's where sports, for instance, comes in. For instance, if you run a sprint of 100 meters, right?
Yeah.
It immediately changes the biochemical, the biochemistry of your body. And so the way all of this really comes together is that, there is state, there is story, and there is strategy, right? Now, the point is that in any given life situation, if it is a relationship that you're trying to improve, if it's a sporting performance that you're trying to improve, if it's your communication that you're trying to improve, if you put story before state, which means without taking care of your physiology, if you focus on the narrative, you may find that you sometimes feel helpless, you feel frustrated and you think it has got to do with you or with the world. But the fact of the matter is that it is the physiology of your body, which has got nothing to do with you at that moment, that has gone for a toss. And what we now know is that physiology can be fixed with very little things: deep breathing, yogic breathing, pranayam, a short sprint, a swim in the pool, a deadlift, whatever it is. So sports and behavioral science and performance, all of this is intricately related. And really the big message that we're saying is that with the smallest of changes at the physiology level, you can impact whatever it is that you're trying to perform. So, like breathing well here right now can make you perform better at the Olympic Stadium, or can make you perform better in your school, or can make you better in your relationships. So that's some food for thought.
And that is food for thought. And would you say that sports people or athletes, or they're better at kind of utilising these skills because they've got the discipline side of things?
Yes. I guess the evidence is there in front of us to be able to see that sports people are able to do this. One can also qualify that fact by saying that sports people get more support, and they get the sports psychology today is like a hugely developed field.
Yep.
And everything is nailed, 1 gram of carb that you eat, how many breaths do you take, and everything is nailed to the last bit of metric. So yes, absolutely, and we see this. One example in sport, for instance, is that in India, where I come from, we've had a paucity of gold medals or any medals in Olympics for over 100 years now, and we are 1.3 billion people. We have the people and the skills. If you think of the law of averages, I'm sure there is a skill spread out in the country.
Yep.
But we haven't had the science. We haven't had the infrastructure. We haven't had the facilities. And now we are saying that if we can get this discipline, if we can get the psychology right, if we can get the performance science right, then we start going towards. And we after the first gold medal that we won ever was in shooting, and the guy Abhinav Bindra who won it, he put it down to sports psychology, and he put it down to things in the mind. So yeah, absolutely, sports people are have a greater motivation, incentive to do it. And yet, what we're saying is that everyone can do it, even beyond sports.
You've just said, because I'm thinking to myself, we're talking about sports and we want to feel better.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is open to everybody. So everybody's got this opportunity of making a difference, right? And this is what the sports podcast for us is all about, is making a difference.
Absolutely.
But this making a difference could be making a difference with everybody.
Yes.
You could be teaching this to your kids.
Yes.
It's like I was somebody posted something that in the UK that there's going to be many schools, 370 schools that's going to bring in mindful thinking and breathing.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And you do it, not because a book or scriptures or Vedas or whoever is saying it. Today you have the science to say that this breathing is in the present moment, and it's not that the pot of gold is at the end of the rainbow. The pot of gold is in this moment. Yeah. You breathe better, and you see you're more mindful, and suddenly the words are not, you're not reacting anymore. You're responding, and lo and behold, there is magic. There
is, because I suppose when meditation, so you're a great one for meditation. You let people, because that's what meditation is all about, from me anyway. Is getting your breathing, listening to your breathing, listening to your heart, listen to the.
You nailed it, Steve. Listening to your breathing. That's about as good or accurate a definition of meditation. It's nothing else. It's not about trying to control your thoughts. It is not about channeling your thoughts in a certain direction. It's just becoming aware of what's going on inside.
Yeah. So it has a really major effect, and I suppose all we got to do is people like yourself is going out there and spreading the word. We've all got the opportunity of telling everybody how to get better at what they do.
Yeah, it's the in a sense it is the great leveler. You and I may not have access to the best Olympic pool in the country, but you and I at any given point of time have access to be able to breathe more mindfully, no matter what situation we are in. And we can nudge our own behavior, which is again a big part of behavioral science. You can have your phone keep nudging you, because it's the easiest thing in the world to have all these intentions, but you get one mail from your boss and suddenly your biochemistry is out of whack and you're like, oh my God, and what is happening? But if you can nudge, if you can have your ecosystem support you, every 15 minutes, if you can have a nudge from your mobile, from your smartphone, and there are any number of apps that can do it. We say, okay, just breathe. Box breathing, for instance. You said you have an army background, military background.
Yeah, military background.
So the US military uses box breathing technique for all their military recruits, and that's they've shown how it has improved performance over a period of time. So yeah, you're absolutely spot on, Steve.
And so you've got the breathing. The breathing is the first steps. So you want to listen to that in a.
That's one of the first steps. I mean, we don't want to we don't want to be prescriptive as to what is it that you should do to change your physiology. There are so many things, like we said. Yeah, it can be like, so for some it can be a sprint. For somebody it can be meditation. For somebody it can be breathing. For somebody it can be a swim in the pool. For somebody it can be doing weights. Like my own story, for instance, Steve. Not to digress too much, but. My body had given up on me in my 20s. But my doctors had given up on me in my 20s. I was asked not to lift any weight. Because I had like extreme muscle atrophy. And I got back on my feet literally because one day I got tired. And with the help of some good physiotherapists in India, I started lifting some weights. And for me to be able to sitting in front of you today and having this conversation is largely the power of the power of sport and the power of behavioral science. Like I'm a living example of that at a very small level. But yeah.
So in your 20s, you were people was losing faith that you were going to kind of be able to operate properly.
Sorry, say that again.
Your body wasn't.
Yeah, my body had given up on me. Like I was told by dozens of doctors that I should not even try to lift anything, and I had a constant, I was diagnosed with cervical spondylitis, which then metastasized into L5, L6 in my lower back, and it kept getting worse. It kept getting worse. And it was not that anybody was trying to conspire that it should get worse. Like you said, this information was not out there, was not so accessible, was not so widespread. So
what was it what was it that turned you? What was it that you?
Well, I just hit breaking point. Like I think if you've been sick in any way, if you've been in a bad relationship or even a bad job, like that, there comes a time when you're sick of being sick. And I think that is when when you say that. Me not being able to do what I want is worse than whatever else that can happen.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, so what? This is the worst that the worst has already happened. Now what? So you might as well do what you want to do. And really that's and this is with the help of a lot of people who at that moment, I sought them out and they put me into rehab. And then slowly we started doing weights, etc., all of that. And now in the last 3 years, the only constant, the difference between me being able to do everything that I want to do to live the life of my dreams, which I'm very ridiculously grateful for, and being that person, in my mid-20s, is the starting point of it was just sports and behavioral science.
It's amazing because you've touched on a couple of subjects today that is close to my heart. One is that I always know about the breathing. I've always been told what the breathing, and you're always very busy. It's always you're always too busy.
Yeah.
Even when you're lying in bed, you're too busy.
Yeah.
It's like you want to go to sleep. It's like what you're doing, listening to your breathing for.
Yeah.
So it's always one of those that you kind of sidestep.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's given me the faith to go on and do this thing.
Yeah.
The getting the breathing right.
Yeah.
The other thing to me is that and I think it's going to be a lot for a lot of people out there today is the phone. Where it can change your and I never looked at it for one thing. I've never looked at it the way that you've explained it. So when you all of a sudden take a message from somebody that can affect your day.
Yeah.
That you can just a few little words that have come together in your phone, and then all of a sudden your day's ruined.
That's it.
It's and that changes the whole inners of you.
Yeah,
it will affect
the first thing it has changed is your biochemistry, but you're feeling it at the level of feeling and action and thinking. Yeah. So you are feeling it at that level, and yet what it has really changed is the biochemistry of your body. Yeah, and if you can then compensate for the biochemistry, then so essentially, I mean, like you have the concept in economics, it's either a vicious cycle or a virtuous cycle.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because even if you take in those two things into account, then if you can be in control of those two areas,
exactly,
you've come a long, long way.
Yeah. Like for instance, we don't control our digestive processes, Steve, right?
Explain more, please.
Yeah, so I'm saying a lot of the bodily functions are either voluntary, semi-autonomous, or autonomous, right? Breathing is semi-autonomous. Like even if you don't do anything, so long as you're existing or are alive, depending on if those two are the same things or are different things. Even if you're not conscious of it, some kind of oxygen is sort of going on. And yet, with practice and with intention, you can ensure that. So, for instance, right, breathing has a very direct impact or relationship with the clarity that you feel at any moment of time. So, I'll just like take 10 seconds to tell you what it is. The higher the amount of oxygen that you take in at any given point of time into your nostrils, the more oxygen that reaches different organs in your body. And that converts into energy, and that energy converts into clarity. So it's a semi-autonomous. So you're able to control some kind of some part of your breathing.
Yep.
Digestive processes is not something that you control. Like you can only eat, but you cannot tell your small intestine or large intestine or the gastric juices to kind of do certain kind of things. Now, the reason it's a domino effect and a virtuous cycle is because if you control your breathing, it also impacts your digestive system.
Yeah.
So meaning to say, you don't have the bandwidth. B, more importantly, you don't need to have the bandwidth to worry about everything else. You get that basic physiology right. Get that basic fix, right? It's like it's like injecting heroin or marijuana or cocaine into your bloodstream. It's the same impact, except that it is not as harmful in the medium or the long run. And you're able to do this, and you're back on track. Yeah.
It's really interesting, and it's just down to simple things that you've just got to implement into your life.
Yeah, and it's there. Yeah.
And what changes it with all these things? And I know I'm going to definitely get you back on the show to be able to go through this great more depth in different stages.
Sure, look forward.
So what has it done for your life now to go and spread this word? What is it like to kind of see people take you up on the things that you're trying to give them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, all of this is such a bonus, Steve. I feel it behooves me now. I spoke to you briefly about my story and my journey. I think now, as a first-hand beneficiary of some of these things, it's like winning the ovarian lottery. Like if you won the ovarian lottery, it behooves you that you paid forward. So for me, and you were talking at the top of our just before we came in about how this community, that you have all these podcasts, you're trying to give it back. In our own small way, this is what we're really trying to do. That this works. This shit is real, and you know what? This is accessible for everyone.
Yeah.
And we are seeing it. Like we are seeing in so many different ways. Like for instance, I'll give you just one example. What was suspected by the medical community as a depression, right, for the longest time. Today we know that more than 50% of cases that we qualify as depression is actually a deficiency of vitamin D, and it has coincided with the amount of time that people have been spending, the lesser amount of sun that people have got in the last 30 years. This has coincided with the rise of depression. And now we know that if you can fix the vitamin D, which is the biochemistry in your body, you don't need therapy. You don't need psychiatry. Of course, there are cases where I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to undermine where there is actually depression. But what we understand as depression, as symptoms of depression, for instance, is actually a biochemistry problem, right? And today that we have the science. Today we have the tools to understand what's the smallest thing that you can do to impact the biochemistry. I'll give you one other example. In performance, I'm sure you've heard of this or you've experienced this. There's something called the flow state.
All right. Yeah.
Where you lose a sense of time. You are deeply absorbed. You experience creative satisfaction. There is unstructured learning and there is rapid yearning. These are 5 signals of flow.
Yeah.
Right. And again, we've seen. Of course, you don't need to. You don't need science and data to back this up because you know this in your gut, your instinct. But now there is science to say that if you practice any contact sport, whether it's boxing, for instance, or anywhere, or rugby, or right, it has a direct impact on how quickly you can achieve flow state in other areas of your life. Because a contact sport needs you to be present Otherwise, you're dead meat.
Yeah.
And that helps you activate flow state in other areas of your life. So, sports and behavioral science feed off each other like nobody's business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing with it is just qualify everything you're saying. You're traveling around all over the world.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
And you're kind of passing this wisdom on to so many different people. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure with wisdom. I'm always very apprehensive about using words which are sort of right up there.
Hey, listen, I kind of, and I'm not trying to. The last thing I want to do is try and patronise you as one of our guests to say, "Oh, you're wonderful. Oh, it's fantastic." No, you want to listen to it. No, but the thing with it is, the stuff that you're saying to me, I'm sure so many people can relate to. I can personally. I can relate to those different things that you're saying. And it's like if you can help somebody control those feelings or control those mood swings, or I'm going to try and my business partner Felix is an amazing guy, and I keep up. My phone's got to be with me, and you hear of all these stories. Yeah. This is causing me big problems. I can't just talking to you today. It's causing me big problems. Yeah. It's the most nicest feeling to be leaving my phone out of the room. Yeah. Because I don't care. I'm talking to you. I'm having a personal relationship with you right now, and it's kind of it's a nice feeling. And I think that's a real big. The breathing I'm going to get into. I walked away from it at one stage, and now I'm going to get back to it. I've got so many people telling me about it.
Have you heard of Vipassana? I'm curious.
No.
So Vipassana is the meditation, the breathing technique that was discovered by Buddha.
Okay.
And then it was passed on from generation to generation for 25 centuries underground.
Okay.
And then was excavated about 50, 60 years back. And now they have Vipassana centers all around the world. They have hundreds of Vipassana centers where you basically go for 10 days and you learn this technique of breathing. And I'm just instinctively, I'm getting the sense from you that this might be something that is up your alley.
I'm gonna.
So you might want to look it up.
Yeah. I know that we're short on time today. But I want to ask you one thing. What's that heart on your lapel?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for asking this question. So back in India, one of the things that we do is called the Seva pop-up project. Seva is a Hindi word that translates into English as service. The Seva Pop-up project is basically an effort to bring a sense of family and festival for people who don't have family in the traditional sense of the word. So it can be old-aged homes, it can be children, it can be destitute women centers, and there's a large number of all of these in our neck of the woods in India. So this heart is actually made, handmade by some of the kids that we work with. And I just like wearing it on my sleeve, literally, and otherwise I like wearing my heart on my sleeve. So this is...
Yogesh, I kind of... you've been an amazing guest today.
Thank you.
You've been an amazing guest, and I can see you're touching a lot of people's lives and you're paying back. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening today. It's been a fantastic show. And I do... listen, what's happened today. If you're taking that phone, if that's affecting your lives on a daily basis, get rid of it. Throw it somewhere and get your personal time. Listen to your breathing, get back to things, make yourself feel better. Okay, get yourself in the sunshine and go and change your life. Okay, and that's what we're and it's a possibility, right? We're going to change our lives. I think, and just with the stuff that you've said today, we can do that.
Yes.
Okay, it's just a matter of kind of listening and listening to people like yourself.
Listen, and it's not to simplify anyone's troubles. Our troubles are real. So
of
we don't
course they're real.
We don't want to patronize or condescend.
Of course.
And yet all of this is accessible.
This is all accessible. And this is the one thing that I would say. It's like, but you've just got to do it.
Yeah.
It's no good thinking, and that's the one thing that I've done over my last few the last few years. Listen, just go and do it. Yeah. It's like, it's no good talking about it. It's no good putting it back and putting it back. Do it. Get involved.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's an absolute pleasure. Everyone, thanks for listening today. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I have. Thank you very much, Yogesh. Till next week, thank you so much. See you then.